The Beijing Winter Olympics, it's now wrapped up, but I don't know, I think it's left a bit of a bad taste. The Chinese dictatorship wanted these games to show the world that China was the new great power. It even flew in Russian President Vladimir Putin as its guest of honour to show the United States its new great alliance with a fellow tyrant. Now, the trouble is that China's bullying and its propaganda might work at home, but it seems to have backfired at the Games, where Western reporters were manhandled. In fact, the Foreign Correspondents Club in China issued a long list of complaints this week of reporters being bullied and harassed and censored and even followed by Chinese officials. The kind of treatment that to them sure exposed the steel fist inside that Olympic glove. Now, one of the journalists there, who's now safely outside China, is Will Glasgow, the North Asia correspondent for the Australian newspaper. Will Glasgow, thanks for coming on the show. You've actually written a very interesting, I found it fascinating, insider account in the Australian of what it's like trying to operate as a journalist in this dictatorship under this new atmosphere. I remember going to China as a journalist several times in the past. Oh, this is a while ago now, and I didn't find the same sort of oppressive atmosphere that I thought your piece really exposed. What kind of Olympic Games did you have?
Well, I had a pretty disturbing Olympic Games, Andrew, or a pretty depressing Olympic Games in total. Now, I went into these games different from a lot of reporters who were going in. A lot of sports journalists were flying in to China, some for the first time or some for just maybe their second or third rare reporting time within China. I used to be based there. I used to be based in Beijing for the Australian 6 months, the first 6 months of 2020. And I had left to get my wife before I thought I'd come back, but it was a big security drama. So I'm no longer based in Beijing. I'm now based in Taipei, where I'm speaking to you tonight. But so I was going into someone who understands the system a lot more and I guess has my eyes a lot more open to it. So I found the whole thing very depressing, Andrew. Top of the list is the Games were hosted a couple of kilometres from where Australian journalist Chung Lei was nabbed off the street 18 months ago. That milestone came up while we were all in the fantasy land of the Beijing Olympics. And that kind of thing, and like you said, Vladimir Putin as the VIP guest of honour as he's threatening war with Ukraine, and the atrocities that are going on out in the West in Xinjiang, and on and on and on. That bad behaviour by the Chinese regime that we speak about all the time, and outside of China, all of that just doesn't exist or isn't ever spoken about within the Olympics bubble. So there's a real kind of eerie fantasy land quality to it all, if you're aware of those things, right? So, yeah, for me, it was a very, very disturbing time.
Well, just on that bit, where there are things not spoken about in China that we all speak about out here, safely away from the censors. I was really struck, for instance, among other things, your encounter with the journalist from the official Chinese Xinhua news agency, which I thought was very telling and also very sad. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was, there's a lot of depressing moments. That was a real heartbreaker. I met this on my way to the short track speed skating. I met this journalist from Xinhua, and we got talking about the work, and I just kept it away from, sensitive things. So we just talk about life in Beijing and China and working for Xinhua and other things like that. And anyway, we went and watched this speed skating, and she was good company to be with for the night. And within the bubble, state media had kind of an all clear to talk to foreigners, right? They thought if you're in the bubble, you were vetted, and they just trusted that we weren't gonna cause too much trouble in there. And also, we were under such surveillance. What could we do, right? So the state media was more open than they were when I was posted there. So we had quite an interesting talk. But she asked me at the end of that night if I'd like to go on her show, and I gave a bit of a non-answer because I didn't want to offend her, but there's no way I was going to go on her Xinhua show, which is all about how wonderful China is and introducing China to the rest of the world. Anyway, 2 days later, I was working in the main media centre in the Olympic bubble, and she came over, she spotted me and came over and sat next to me on this table I was at. It was out of the way, I guess, from the crowds in there, but still pretty open. And asked me again if I'd come on a show, and she had an idea for the show, which was that together we would learn the dance for the official Olympic song, "Together for a Shared Future," which is a horrendous song, Andrew, you've probably never heard. But if you're in the Olympic bubble, you heard it all the time, like a Christmas carol during Christmas time. And that was just constantly on. And this was her idea, that we would together dance in this song in front of the cameras for Chinese state media. And she told me, we would show how the Olympics were bringing the world together. And again, I said no. And she pressed the point a bit. And look, eventually I just thought, look, I felt we'd established enough trust that I could just tell her the truth. And the truth was, there's no way I was going to go on state media to dance to "Together for a Shared Future" in a propaganda video. There's just no way. And we spoke a bit. I kind of gave my reasons for why not. I was actually preparing a story at the time about Chung Lei, that Australian journalist who's still in prison in Beijing. And I told her about that, and she said she'd never heard of that. She didn't know anything about Chung Lei. And I brought up a picture of Chung on my phone and showed her, and she said she didn't know. But I told her more about that situation, and she started getting a bit uncomfortable. And then I just told her the truth. Look, there's no way I'm going to come on a show dancing while an Australian's in a prison near here. I should say an Australian I knew, Chung Lei. And I said to her, I don't think the Olympics are bringing people together. I think that this is a fantasy land that we're in, where no one's talking about all these deep structural problems between China and much of the rest of the world, including Australia. I just don't think singing and dancing in a video is going to fix that. I think we should be talking about these difficult, these political issues. They're real. They're here. They're in the way. And she started crying as we were talking about this, and talking about how we're crying, and as she was saying that she wished things were different, and she wished she didn't have to use a VPN. She wished that she could have access to the internet.
I love the Chinese culture before communism. I've got Confucius books. I love my poems from the Tang Dynasty, etc., etc. But what China's done there, the Communist Party, is really crapped all over it. Thank you very much for your time, Will. Great piece. Thank you so much.